My ex cheated on me in prison, and I'm so glad she did because I'd be stuck with the hussy today if she hadn't. Awful person, in disguise, completely had me fooled. Now, I hate to do it, but I'm gonna have to split this up over a couple videos because I just can't tell the story in one video. Now, whenever we got together, I was on bond for federal charges. We knew I was going to prison. I tried to keep it not serious, but she said, "Oh, no, I want to be with you." So I let her talk me into thinking that I was going to be in a long-term relationship with her. I tried telling her, "No, I'm going to prison. We might not want to do that." She was like, "Nah, I want to be with you." So I went with it. And you won't hear me talk a lot about her during my other stories because she ain't nothing to me. I see that she had me fooled and everything else. So, anyway, when I was in prison, my mom gave her a job at her store. Um, and there was a time when things just seemed like something wasn't right. You know, I'm not an idiot. I'm actually, I pick up on a lot of things because as a drug dealer, I had to, and as a drug addict, as a dealer, you have to do certain things in order to keep on moving along in that type of life. So what I had to do was pick up on certain things, certain cues that might keep me from getting arrested. So I started noticing every time I called her, I heard like a screen door close. So I'm like, every time is she calling me? And I mean, that I'm calling her, is she stepping outside of her apartment? Am I hearing a screen door close every time that I call her? And I'd ask. And certain times I'd have suspicions. And I'd ask her to say stupid stuff. I'd pretend like, I'm cutting up, I'm cutting up. Deep down inside, I think I knew it. And inside the prison pod, an open unit at the medium security, I'd yell, "I love you," in a goofy voice just to show I didn't care. And I'd tell her to do it back. And she didn't want to do it back. And I'm like, well, why not? You're alone in your apartment. If I can do it in a room full of 150 men and embarrass myself, you can't do it alone in your apartment. And certain things. And I remember I was in the drug unit, the RDAP drug program, when I really started suspecting it. And I remember telling my cellie, you know when you think something's going on, but you know you're just driving yourself crazy, and you think you're going crazy, and like, I'm sorry, man. You know, I hate you're going through that, and I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm just in my head. I said just overthinking things, and then we had a visit. My mom did me the favor. See, my mom is in the jewelry business. I wanted to make sure my ex was taken care of. So I got her job at my mom's store. And my mom had kept telling me, well, she's talking to me like this. She's talking to me. I thought, well, my mom just doesn't like her. She's getting tired of her, blah, blah, blah. She this, that, something or another. And I am so ashamed and disgusted with myself that I didn't listen to it because I was torn between the two. I should have listened to my mom. I didn't. And I'm ashamed of that day. But anyway, in this visit, you know, I didn't go to the kitchen a whole lot. I'm a picky eater. And you can only spend so much on your prison limit, on your spending limit. And I was trying to work out, get a lot of extra protein, get a lot of extra food. So something that I had was I had money put on other inmates' books on their prison account because you had a spending limit. You could only spend so much a month. Well, I spent my limit up. Well, other inmates that did not spend their limit up, I put money on their books, and for every $100 I put on their books, I gave them $20, and they'd give me $80 of stuff I ordered. I'd give them $20 for the trouble of doing it. So we had certain names of certain people we put money on their books. Just two names pretty much that I put money on their books. So then I didn't have to go to the kitchen. I lived a pretty good life in prison. I had family that was helping me out a good bit. So my mom and my ex are both in the visitation room. And my mom says to my ex, "Oh, yeah, you can put the money on so and so's books, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, I can do that." And she's like, "Well, give me your car keys. I'll leave the money under the floorboard or the floor mat of your car." She was hesitant, but she could not do it. Why would she not do it? My mom knew what she was doing. My mom's had junkies work at her jewelry store before, and she's busted them out too. I didn't know Mom was doing that at the time. Well, she gave my mom the keys. We had the rest of our visit. My mom went out to her car. My mom searched her car. She found a pair of $5,000 hearts on fire. It's a specific type of cut of diamond earring in her car. Now, over the last 5 months, she had stolen $100,000, $200, $300 at a time from my mom's store. When so much money's coming and going incrementally, it's hard to notice that much. But she was getting braver. And she had a $5,000 set of earrings in her car with the price tag still on them. And she tried to say, well, I just wore them out and blah, blah. Well, my mom went through the whole car. My mom found a syringe in the glove box. And before, where I would have been hesitant, submissive, like quiet, after my mom had told me that in a phone call. Now, keep in mind, you've only got 300 minutes a month in the federal system. They don't let you have unlimited calls. You get 300 minutes a month, which equates to 10 minutes a day. Well, I remember this day. I was in the drug unit, and I made a cheesecake. It was an awesome cheesecake. It's one of the best cheesecakes I'd ever made. It took forever to make it, and I split it between me and a couple of my buddies. I made it to eat. I didn't make it to make money off of. I didn't sell it. And me and a couple of my buddies, we'd split this cheesecake up. I didn't eat a bite of that cheesecake. My stomach was sick. My stomach hurt. And I was never mean, not one day. But this time I called her and I said, "You need to get down here, and you need to get down here tomorrow. Not the day after, tomorrow. We need to talk." Well, she said she would. And, something to keep in mind. My ex, she was black, and after her I had a Mexican girlfriend, and then I'm with my fiance, who was the love of my life, my high school crush. I ended up with my high school crush, who I've been with for 5 years now. I couldn't be happier. God, life worked out. So just to keep that in mind, but black people's hair, just being real. I'm just talking real with you here. with weaves and stuff like that. Like, it was something like, I mean, now some of y'all black people might laugh at this, but this is something we never talked about. I didn't know about black people's hair. I never went out with a black girl before, so I didn't know to ask, "Is that your hair? Is that a weave?" I didn't know nothing about that. But I noticed her hair started looking not as good as it used to. And it started looking not as good as it used to because she was a broke junkie. And she was nasty and not taking care of herself. So she went from having, you know, perfect, what was a weave, to just this terrible looking mess of stuff on top of her head. Like this cheap weave that just didn't even look like it sat on her head right. And certain things like that. But anyway, you know, it, she shows up in the visitor room, but I'd called her and I kept waiting for her to show up in the visitor room. I kept wondering, is she there? And I kept calling and calling, and I kept getting a busy signal. You know how when you get the ringtone and it says a boop at the end, and they're on the other line? Well, I kept getting a busy signal. Well, then they call me for visitation. Well, she's in the visitation room, and I'm getting a busy signal. Who the hell is in your car with your phone? Because you can't have a phone in the visitation room. So I get in the visitation room. I start talking to her. I'm like, who's in your car? She's like, that's my friend, Courtney. I'm like, okay. She's like, yeah, I'm nervous about coming down today, blah, blah. What is going on? I was, what's this? What's that? And you know what I did? The idiot hussy. I said, I've had a private investigator watching you. Who's this guy coming in out of your apartment? She said, he helps with the groceries. I said, he helps with the groceries? Do you have a guy living with you? And that's when it hit me, and that's when she admitted it. Not only was she cheating on me, she had a guy living with her. Oh, man. I cried like a baby. It was everything, and I couldn't help it. One of my friends in there is like, man, you didn't even holler at me when you saw me in the visiting room. And I just had to keep it together because I was like trying not to let people see me. I was crying like a baby. Like, I was fooled because every time my mom would say she was saying this, I'd ask her about it, and she's like, well, I don't know why she doesn't like me. And it is so easy. Because, see, we'd never lived with each other. When I was free, we'd only see each other on the weekends for about a few hours at a time, like 3 hours at a time. She fooled me. She was an awful person. When you only see somebody for a few hours, once or twice a week, they can put on a fake. They can put on a whole scam of who they are. And that's what she did. And when you only visit somebody in prison once a week, you can pretend to be anybody on the planet you want to be if you're a good enough actress. And she was, crying them crocodile tears. I got her to admit to it. And she lost so much weight. She looked like a crackhead. She came there in this like pleather coat that was like scratched up. Like, it looked like Junkies R Us. Like, the stuff she was wearing. It smelled like a stale cigarette. And I'm like, what are you even wearing? And at that point, I went in on her. And I had never been mean once in my life. I had never said one unkind word once in my life. I had been so nice the entire, let's see, I'd been in prison about 3.5 years at that point. We've been together about 5 years at that point. I had never said one unkind thing. But then I realized at this point before this, a couple months before this, she wrecked a car, totaled it. A car my mom co-signed for, so my mom was going to be liable for the payments for it because her broke ass wasn't going to pay for it. Um, you know, I and she moved a guy into an apartment that my mom was helping make payments on, even though my mom was employing her because she was saying, "Oh, I don't have enough money to make the payments." Well, I don't have enough money to make the payments. She's spending it all on dope, and she knew she could abuse my mom. And basically, what I found out was she basically in my mom's store. She basically, anytime my mom would try to reprimand her for something, she's like, "Oh, go ahead and do that," and she let her know that she'd be mean to me and make my life hard because I was such a sweet person, and she knew that she could play that act and that I believe it, and I feel so ashamed of it. So ashamed of it. Now, I'm gonna do a part two of this, and I'm gonna talk about the stuff, and y'all are gonna love my revenge. Y'all gonna love it. Oh my God, you're gonna love it. Oh my God, you are gonna love it. But I kept my mom from putting her in prison for stealing $100,000 over a 5 month period. She admitted it. Multiple people. Now, there will come part two of this. I will put it out there. I'm so glad I'm not with her. I'm so glad I wasn't with her. I'm so glad that I went to prison because if I wasn't, and if I'd been free, I might have had a kid with this girl. And then, if she tried to, oh my God, life would have been terrible. I did not know who she was. You know, I know who my fiance was everything about her. I've been living with her. This girl I got glimpses of for a few hours once a week. And my mom will tell you, before I was living with my mom, like, you know, I'd have pre-made excuses when she came over for why she had to go home. So I told her, okay, after she'd been over so long, after we got done, hanging out, um, I'd be like, after so many hours, tell her I've got this to do. She's got to go home. I'd have excuses for her to go home before she even got there. That's the truth. And, so basically where I'm going to leave this off at is in that visitation room, she expected me to leave her. And I said, okay, I'm not going to leave you. And she didn't want the gravy train to end, so she accepted. And I said, but prove to me you love me. Get a tattoo of my name, big on your back. This hussy got a name of my name tattooed that big on her back. And I'm going to leave this off with one thing. I found out who was in the car with her. It was the guy who she moved into the apartment with her. She brought him, and he was waiting in the car when she came to visit me. That's how awful of a girl this was. And it gets deeper than that, and I'm going to do another video to wrap up all the loose ends of it. But, man, that was a rough month for me. It's probably the easiest month of her life. I'm sure she slept fine that whole month. Awful, awful, terrible person. You know, but, man, I lost a lot of weight that month. I lost a lot of sleep. I woke up, my roommate, who's free now, he can tell you, I woke up at 4:30 to 5:30 every morning and dry heaved in the toilet as soon as I woke up. That's the same as I did when I was coming off heroin. You know, that's what it reminded me of. Although I hadn't done heroin, God knows how long. I have anxiety, and it gave me the same bodily reaction as dope withdrawal. Oh man, it was bad what she did. It was awful. I mean, what this girl did. And just to leave it on this, because my sister went through a breakup, and some advice that I gave to her was I used to lay in bed and try to go back to sleep because all I wanted to do was go to sleep to escape reality. But sooner or later I realized you got to get up, you got to keep moving, you got to live life. And what I started doing was when I woke up at 5:30, I got up and I stayed up the whole day. and I try to find something funny to watch on a TV. I try to find on the MP3 players we had in prison. I try to find a comedy show we could download. Jim Norton. That's when I discovered him during that time. They had Jim Norton on the MP3, and I downloaded him on there. Now, that's what I told my sister whenever she went through her breakup was, when you wake up in the morning, get up. Do not lay there and try to go back to sleep. Get up, find something funny to watch. Do not, because when you lay there and you try to fall back asleep, that's when your head goes. That's when you think about all the bad things, when your mind takes over, when you eat yourself up about all kinds of stuff. And she was like, "Oh my God, you're right. My life became easier once I got up in the morning. I started getting after life." She said, "Yeah, I'm still tired. I don't feel well rested, but it's better than laying there and thinking about it." Yeah, that was something I did over and over for a good many nights before I realized, as soon as I get up, time to get up, time to stay up. I'm not going to be able to fall back asleep. And I remember, whenever I'd wake up, there'd be that brief moment of peace where I felt like, and at that point I was used to being in prison. I'd be like, it's just another morning in prison. And then, feel like I got electrocuted, and I remember, I'm with a hussy. I'm with a hood rat, hoochie mama. Yeah. And at that moment, oh man, at that moment, my stomach all the way up to the top of my hair, my teeth, my toenails, everything, they hurt. I felt like I was going to die. There's a part two to this. Old Spencer came out on top. That old hussy didn't win this battle, so don't worry. I'm going to tell you how it worked out, but man, it killed me. And to wait to about all that time to where I'm about a year away from, it was about a year and a half at that point, and about a year or less when we split. And to think, went through all that time. And also, a key factor to mention too, she had never done heroin before I went to prison. She knew why I was in prison. She knew how bad I hated it, how bad I thought about it. If you never had a heroin problem before, and you know my story, and you know how bad I hate it, why would you decide to try it? Now, once you try it, that's a different story. Once you try it, once you're hooked, that's a different story. That's a different animal. But for you to try it for the first time, man, get out of here. That's just stupid. Just stupid. Just the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm glad she showed her true colors, though. Man, I'm so glad. Because I'd be stuck with that. But even worse, I wouldn't be with the girl that I was meant to be with. The girl that my whole life was made perfect by being with. It's my high school crush, So it all worked out. It's got a happy ending to it, but man, it was a rough time. I should have let my mom put her in prison, but I was still holding on to that dumb thought that maybe we can make this work. No, I tried it though. But anyway, we'll get to a part two of this. Believe me, we'll get to that.